Hi, my name is Bhagwan Chowdhry. I am a professor of finance at ISB. Today I'll be speaking with Professor Shekhar Tomar, and the topic for today is what's the economic impact of Corona? And we will be specially focused on its effect in India. So, Shekhar, we have had a lot of people talking about Corona, and it seems like there is a consensus that easiest or the most effective way is to create what we call social distancing. What it means is there's going to be a lockdown. Schools are going to be closed, theaters are going to be closed, people are not going to be going to the restaurants, and so on and so forth. Tell us, what impact is this going to have?
So I'll take you through some of the slides which I've made on this issue.
Okay.
So there are various impacts of shutdown, and as you mentioned, some of them are already in place. So what it means is that people are not visiting the restaurants. Probably the people who are working in the restaurants would lose their jobs, which means that they can't go and buy anything. And then it would lead to a ripple effect. So effectively speaking, it can actually have a permanent impact on the economy because part of the workforce is going to be laid off because of these temporary shutdowns. So now, in the end, it of course would depend on number of weeks or number of months we are shutting down, but this is something we need to prepare ourselves.
We need to plan for it.
We have a plan for it. Now, every country is going to be impacted by it. It's already impacted or will be impacted in the future. And so the thing is, you can't even borrow from abroad or actually go to multilateral institutions. So it's really a global.
So it's not like a flood. The flood in Kerala, we sort of appeal to international community and they send us resources. Right now, we are all in the same boat.
Exactly, and everyone is having the same problem, so they are trying to support their own economy. Now, there are good and bad parts of it because India is not so much integrated trade-wise in the aggregate world economy. So it's good because we won't be impacted from that channel so much. China, for example, depended too much on exports and imports, so their economy was hit harder. But if there are lockdowns, then internally we are going to be impacted. So which is actually shown here. Okay. So I want to bring it to you. So I'm going to give a relative comparison to the 2008 crisis.
Okay, so on this slide, you're showing there are two effects. One is because people are not going in spending, that means workers who are getting money don't have enough money to spend. So that's a big effect coming from demand. But there's also an effect because there's going to be a disruption in supply chain.
Exactly. And actually, there are like a lot of discussions around it, and some people are thinking, okay, old people take a lot of money and resources, but actually there are also a lot of, they generate a lot of consumption in the economy. So the demand contraction is actually real, and then it forces and feeds back into the supply chain disruption. So that's why you have this arrow. So there is negative impact on businesses. It's going to impact the income. It's going to impact the demand, which is again going to have negative impact.
There's a negative feedback loop going on. So try and give us some sense of how big this can be. Do we have a sense of quantitatively how big this can be?
So let's again go back to the last crisis we were in, which was 2008. How well India was prepared.
So that was the financial crisis.
That was a financial crisis, very different scenario, kind of uncertain, but on the economy side, even now we don't know how much of an impact it would have on India and on the world, the Corona impact. That crisis was financial. But just to set benchmark where we are relative to how prepared we were in 2008. So I've given only two charts over here. So on the right, you have a GDP growth rate.
So that shows the big dip in 2008 and 9.
Yeah, but the important point is not only the dip. If you start in September 2008, we were growing around 6.5%. So we were pretty high.
Yeah.
We had a pretty high growth back then. Relatively, in September 2019, we are around 4.5. So we are not in the same...
So we are weaker compared to how prepared we were in terms of growth rate compared to 2008.
Second, it was a financial crisis, but even though it was a global financial crisis, on the right we see the non-performing assets ratio in the banking sector in India. So it's just...
It was very low in 2008.
Exactly, it was around 2%, and now
it's peaking.
So our banking sector was very resilient in 2008. Right now, we are into a debt overhang. The banking sector is having a problem. We had the Yes Bank just recently.
Yeah.
So we are in the middle of a banking crisis. We have a lower growth. The inflation is also high. So we need to plan a lot more than what we did in 2008. And just because we were safe in 2008 doesn't mean that we are as safe today.
Okay, so we are weaker today, so we need to think about it a bit more carefully. Okay, very good. How big is this effect going to be? Do we have...
So just to talk about that, so one of my colleagues at RBI, so I was working with RBI before, Abhinav Narayanan and his co-author.
So Professor Tomar was at RBI and we decided to get him here at ISB because we needed expertise in macroeconomics.
Yeah, thank you. So Abhinav has this paper, Abhinav and Thakur has this paper based on Kerala flood. So before I give the exact analysis, it's important to understand that we right now don't know the level and the timing effect of the corona. In case of flood, we know it's going to be 2 to 3 week event, and then things would probably go to
And it's more local.
And it's more local. So corona can really be actually affecting the entire India. So it's bigger and so more uncertain. But having given all that caveat, what happened after Kerala floods in 2018? So what these guys find is that the expenditure went down by around 7%.
Which is big.
Which is big. 7% expenditure going down. It's a big demand contraction. Now imagine that happening.
That's similar. So lockdown would have, we think, an order of magnitude similar, if not worse.
Yeah, I mean, in floods, you don't go out, you don't generate any economic activity, but it's going to be bigger because everyone is locked down now.
Yeah.
So the expenditure fell down and it continued like that for a very long time. So it didn't recover very fast.
I see. So that's what you mean by enduring.
Enduring. So it had a longer term impact because of that. And then the income also fell cumulatively by around 16% for a shorter 2 or 3 month duration period. But it was helped because the government came in and they provided flood relief.
So there was some intervention, some transfers took place, and that
Exactly.
income recovered.
So income can recover, but expenditure was very low. And even the expenditure, so the food expenditure didn't go down, but some other expenditure on transportation, clothing, all that went down, which had a bigger impact on these sectors. And even in terms of people, it's very different what impact it would have. So over here, retired people, self-employed people, daily workers, they had much more impact due to this flood. So which is the same we would expect even in current situation.
So even in this case, we need to think about who are the people who are going to be affected more and who are the people who are going to be affected.
Exactly.
So it's not okay only to look at averages. We have to look at who are the vulnerable population.
Exactly. So we need to think of a policy which takes into account this difference between different strata of society.
Okay.
Now, coming to the impact on firms. So as you mentioned, and there has been some discussion about managing the supply chain disruption. So just to give you what's the impact of current lockdown. So aviation is not in lockdown, but people are flying less.
Yes.
So we can even talk about that. But I collected numbers based on the Permanent Labor Force Survey from 2017-18, which gives me a breakup of employment in different sectors.
Okay.
So just looking at the current urban employment share, roughly 10% of the employed population is already affected due to the current lockdown.
And these are the ones that will be affected really badly. The restaurants,
Right now.
people won't be going to see movies or theater, and all education institutions are shut down.
So a lot of informal sector employment is in the restaurants. So that's going to be impacted. But even for education, let's say you run a private sector school, you know the school is not there, maybe you'll fire the temporary workers for a while, which is really going to impact these people. So that's really important, which brings in how should we actually deal with this problem.
Yeah, so what should the government do?
So there is some working capital problem. So working capital in the time of non-performing assets. So the RBI and the government really need to sit down together. What's the role of RBI going to be? So we just listened to the governor of RBI
A few minutes ago,
and he talked about that everything is okay. We are sitting on a lot of liquidity in
But
India.
that's aggregate liquidity.
Exactly.
I don't think he talked about which businesses are going to be badly.
Exactly. So even if you think of like temporary liquidity, should you give more liquidity to the mall owners?
For example. Yeah.
For example, should we take a more benevolent look towards them? Or even otherwise, I mean, because of the NPA crisis, the bank managers are not very happy giving loans. So having the liquidity is one thing, and then providing that liquidity to the firms is another thing.
So perhaps we can create different indices and see which sector the index looks really bad, and perhaps relief in terms of lower interest rates or some amount of liquidity injection could be based on that. And they could pay more when the times are good.
Exactly. And we should also think about whether they can actually keep people on their payroll even when they are not producing. It's a temporary shock. Let's hope it doesn't last.
So formal sector economy can do
Yes.
it, but the informal sector economy, it would be hard.
It would be harder. And there is one another thing. So whenever such kind of a shock happens, you want to know what the government is going to do. And so the government is trying to be very fiscally conservative. We have been talking about FRBM for a while. But now the question is...
This is not the time to be fiscally conservative, is that right?
I mean, I'm not keen, but such times, I mean, these are really, it can be desperate times. I'm not saying India is in that situation right now.
We need to keep the fiscal thing on the side at least for a few months.
Exactly.
And hopefully this will go away in a few months, but we don't know.
And then I want you to think about work from home. People are talking about, if we do work from home, then everything is going to be settled. So we just looked at the top Nifty 50 firms.
Yeah.
And we wanted to see what's the potential for work from home. So the table at the top, it gives you what's the potential for work from home. So some firms can really allow work from home. So
Infosys, Wipro,
exactly.
TCS, firms that are doing stuff on the computer, people can work from home.
So mostly IT firms. Then in the intermediate, you have banking or telecommunication firms. So banking firms, if you have a front-end job, you can't ask the cashier to work from home because you need him to sit there. But you can have the analytics division in the bank, which can probably work from home.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the least work from home capable firms like Larsen and Toubro, which really need people to go and work.
Manufacturing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we wanted to see...
that would be hard to do.
Yeah.
That. That's what you mean by the least there.
Yes. And so we wanted to see how these top 50 firms, so these are the best firms who can actually react, and we wanted to see how much they have reacted. So at least among the most potential for work from home firms, all of them have given work from home.
So they already have reacted.
Yeah.
In a way
So
like.
we are not saying they have given complete work from home, but at least there is news articles about them providing work from home. Even in the intermediate sector, a lot of firms have actually not given any news about work from home. So you can divide it even in terms of the share in Nifty, and you see it's only 30% of the entire Nifty 50 basket that can actually give some work from home. So a lot of the economy is actually, you can't provide any work from home. And so we wanted to dig deeper, and then we looked at the overall economy. And then we looked at two things. So one is work from home likelihood. So it's the same as we talked before. You can be least, intermediate, or most likely to provide work from home. And then the second is some kind of human proximity. Like I'm very proximate to you right now, but technically we can have done this recording from home. So there is not really so much requirement of providing proximity. The way we are doing with our education classes, we're trying to move them online. So I divided the sectors based on how likely you are going to get work from home, like how likely it is to provide it, and how much is the human proximity involved in your job.
Okay.
And so even for proximity,
this chart has too many numbers and I'm having a hard time finding. What are you getting from this chart?
So if you are doing agriculture, you're probably working with your family, you don't require human proximity. So you are safe, we don't care.
Safe.
So that job can go on.
Okay.
Really bad jobs are these blue ones, where you require people to be in close proximity. For example, if you are in agro production, like agro packaging, you're preparing chips or some kind of production like that. So you really need to be proximate to other humans. You're working on some factory floor, and there's no possibility of work from home because you have to work in the...
So this is that you require joint production. And
joint production,
have to be
exactly.
For this to work. Okay.
So if you only focus on this last part, that's still 1/3 of the economy. So these are the people who would be most impacted by lockdown.
Okay.
So that's 1/3 of the economy.
Okay. Let's go to people. We always look at government and say the government can do this and that. What can we do? What can people do, ordinary human beings?
So how can you help? So one part is the government can really come in and have some kind of a measure in mind, providing through PM relief, the way it happens during the Kerala floods. But we are asking for lockdown. So there are some simple measures you can take. So maybe in a few days you would ask your maid to not come home. But rather than not paying them their salary,
pay them the salary.
Pay them the salary.
Okay.
Then another thing you can do is, and this is like really, you need to provide income transfer to the most vulnerable section of the economy, people employed in informal sectors. And so what you can propose is some kind of a policy which Bhagwan actually coined is
risk sharing. I think one of the things we can do as a community is to help each other out. So in bad times, people who have means can help those who are badly affected. And we usually do it through our temples, our masjids, and our gurudwaras and churches. So one idea that we were discussing with ISB faculty was maybe we can create an electronic, we call it electronic church gurudwara masjid mandir, ECGN Square. And the idea would be those of us who can afford it, make a payment to ECGN Square. And those who are badly affected and they really need some money can send an SMS, and without any questions asked, they can withdraw 100 rupees per day. So this is like going to a temple. When you go to a temple, nobody asks you, do you have the money or not? Everybody gets free food. This is one example of everybody getting help from those who can.
So this is really going back to that demand contraction thing. So every time you want to pay some money, people want to target. And what we are saying is people are nice. If they really need, they should just send an SMS. And there should be no targeting at all.
No target. See, this is important because as soon as you say, oh, you have to prove that you are poor, or you have to prove that you're bringing in bureaucracy and all the money is lost there. Here we have to trust people. These are bad times. People are not going to take advantage of this. Just like in a temple, nobody shows up and says, oh, I will not contribute to the temple, I'm getting free food. I think people will be nice about it. And those of us who can will feel good about contributing to this.
Exactly.
So this is like an electronic version of a shrine where we have trust in God.
So this is how we can help, but the government can also think about opening up the PM relief fund if needed. Like this is really like a natural calamity right now. And if the government has to transfer money directly to the affected people, which is mostly going to be in urban centers.
So we can do it through Aadhaar-related bank
Exactly.
accounts, for example. So the PM relief fund can top up. So private citizen can give some amount, but if that falls short, rest of the money can come from the Prime Minister. So we are urging both citizens and the Prime Minister's office to make this plan a reality.
Exactly. And before we close, we would talk about some kind of supply chain disruption. So what should we do about it?
Yeah.
So we know that there is some NPA problem which is happening in our banks, and so it's really troublesome for firms to actually get some working capital loans. But there is one part of it which is that the GST payments are not, the refunds are not going back to the firms. We don't know at the precise scale of the problem, but at least in these times, the government can release the funds.
We can relax those requirements.
Exactly. So one part is that all the government and the PSU bodies, they should really pay away the firms right now. Within the next fortnight, they pay away all whatever is due on them.
So whatever the government, this is the time to pay up. This is when they need money the most, and this is how they can help.
So it's not even fiscal transfer, it's really what these companies
This is what
deserve.
you owe, so this is the time to pay up.
So, and then you can also think about some kind of immediate liquidity infusion into the banking system, which is what we were talking about. You can provide and relax some NPA loans, maybe if things go south from here.
Okay.
And then these cheaper working capital loans can actually be based on asking firms to not fire their temporary employees. And maybe, I mean, you can think about how to generate these kind of loans, but I think we should start thinking about how to react if things really go bad.
Okay. So to summarize, this crisis is unprecedented. The lockdown is going to have big effects, and some of it is going to come from the demand side, some of it is going to come from the supply side, which is a double whammy. So we need to do all we can. We can use all the instruments that are available to the government to provide liquidity to firms by making it funds easily available, paying up all their dues, and we as citizens can also help by making donations so that those who are in need can actually access this in a simple way, because now we have the digital infrastructure to do it efficiently. So I think all of us have to do our part. This is a time of crisis, and this is a time...
It's not just an economic crisis, it's a humanitarian crisis.
It's a humanitarian crisis. We need to share risks. That means we need to share good times and bad times. So I hope all of you would contribute. Please talk to your neighbors. Please talk to your politicians, please talk to your leaders to see how we can do the best. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bhagwan.
you.
Thank you.